Welcome to Jazz Zone Together, our new online jazz community where we will provide jazz education resources, interviews with jazz educators, artists, and celebrities, along with valuable tips and repertoire suggestions. Today, we're truly honored and excited to welcome a jazz superstar, Ignacio Berroa. After fleeing Cuba in the 1980s, he relocated to New York City and became part of Dizzy Gillespie's quartet. And that was just the start of an illustrious jazz performance career. Now I'd like to turn the mic over to Dick Dunscomb to conduct the interview with Ignacio. Dick, take it away.
Hey, Ignacio. It's such a pleasure to welcome you today, my friend, to Jazz Zone Together.
Thank you for having me.
Extraordinary career and brought the art of Afro-Cuban drumming to a whole new level. Tell us about your early career and what drove you.
Well, my career began many years ago in Cuba. I'm coming from a musical family. My father used to play the violin and my grandfather used to play the flute in Cuban charangas orchestras in Havana. I was born and raised in Havana. So music was always around me because also my mom always had the radio on in our apartment. So that was the beginning. When I turned 11 years old, my father came home with 2 albums that turned my life upside down. He brought an album by the Nat King Cole Trio, and the second album by the, I believe it was the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and with Gene Krupa on drums. I believe because there are some people who have told me that Krupa never recorded with Glenn Miller. So I thought it was Glenn Miller. Maybe it was Tommy Dorsey. But anyway, when I heard Nat King Cole dig, it was no drums. It was Nat King Cole Trio. And when I heard that music, I was bitten by the jazz bug. And I knew that that was the music that I wanted to play, even though I was born and raised in a country where rhythms like the rumba, the cha-cha-cha, all the Afro-Cuban rhythms are the main chords. So that was the beginning. I went to the National School of the Art to study violin because my mother wanted me to be like my dad. Studied the violin for 2 years. I was not interested at all on playing Mendelssohn or Tchaikovsky or Beethoven on the violin. My passion was jazz. So I went to the National School and that was, excuse me, that was the beginning of me studying music. A year and a half later, I switched to percussion because most of the audience, most of the people in the United States and in the world that have followed my career and know who I am or who I became since my arrival to the United States. They think that Cuba is a country where you can go and play at the jazz band at your high school, that you can go to the conservatory and sign up for a jazz major. Unfortunately, during to my generation, talking about jazz was talking about the music of the enemy. So jazz was a no-no because it was something coming from America. And due to the political situation between the two countries, one of the way the Cuban government defend against whatever the United States government were throwing at them was prohibiting that music. But anyway, with a lot of effort, I was able to get in touch or to stay attuned to what was going on here in the United States, because the island is just 90 miles away from Key West. So when weather permitted, I was able, or I said, I'm gonna say we, the people who wanted to be jazz musicians or just jazz lovers, period, we were able to get some radio station from Key West, Miami. And the father that we were able to listen to was the great Willis Conover at the Voice of the America. So that way we knew what was going on in the United States, and also musically speaking, in this case, and also some people that had some records prior to the Cuban Revolution that began in 1959. So that's how I developed, and I was able to become a jazz musician. But I was not a jazz player in Cuba. I was an all-around player. In Cuba, back in those days, if you wanted to succeed, you had to learn to play. First of all, you have to be a good reader, know how to read music, which I think still nowadays it is important to learn how to read music and to learn to play different music styles. Like play Brazilian music, play jazz, play a pop tune, play funk, play, of course, Brazilian, to play all the styles. So that's how my career began in Cuba. I had a great drum teacher who taught me on a practice pad, not the practice pad everybody in this world knows. It is something that it's something for the books. It was a piece of rubber on top of a wood thing with a metal base. And that was all the instruments we had, my generation in Cuba. So my teacher taught me a few rudiments that I have to say honestly that didn't pay the attention that was supposed to have paid to those rudiments. And going through snare drums books like Buddy Rich, Henry Adler, Benjamin Podemsky, and a book from the former Soviet Union that we used to say jokingly that not even the guy who wrote the book was able to play it because it was very, very difficult. And then there was 3 years of a snare drums book with my teacher, Fausto Garcia Rivera, who studied in New York with Henry Adler in the 40s. And then after that, I went to study with the principal percussionist of the National Symphony Orchestra in Havana. And then I went to study a little bit of timpani and mallets. And I said a little bit because when I started studying mallets, I got the call to go and serve in the Cuban army. So my studies were stopped suddenly because I had to go to serve in the Cuban army. And once I got out from the army, I didn't want to continue with my studies of timpani and xylophone because I wanted to be a drummer. So once I got out of the army, I pursued my career as a drummer in Cuba, which it was very short because I was a pro, like a name in Cuba from 1975 to 1980. Then in May 1980, I left and I arrived to the United States. So that's more or less my career, how it began, my first steps in Cuba. And then I moved to the United States and I was lucky and able to get a connection with Dizzy Gillespie. I want to tell all the audience that has been confused about my life in the United States. I came from Cuba in 1980, in May 1980, during the Mariel boat lift. And I'm going to say that, go to Google and you're going to find out, guys, what happened in 1980. That was 40 years ago. So I was one of those Cubans that emigrated to this country. I didn't know Dizzy Gillespie, but more importantly, I didn't know the meaning of yes when I jumped out of the jet that brought me from Cuba. I didn't know a word of English. And this English that I'm throwing at you now, it is thanks to my dear friend Dizzy Gillespie, and thanks to all the great people in this country that have helped me to understand and speak the language. And also, I have to kiss myself, thanks to my effort and my desire coming to this country and integrating into the country. So I didn't know a word of English. I was not able to speak to Dizzy Gillespie. Dizzy Gillespie never spoke a word of Spanish, just the bad words that I taught him when I became his drummer. And Dizzy Gillespie wasn't waiting for me, like a lot of people think. Dizzy Gillespie wasn't waiting for me at Key West with a limousine and a contract. I went to New York. I remember Sonny Rollins, the great Sonny Rollins says, we jazz musicians are samurais. We have to go and take our samurais and get everything. So I went to New York. I went to a shop in the Bronx, I'm jokingly, and I bought the best samurai I was able to get at that time with no money. And went to Manhattan with my samurai and tried to find my place. So it was not like a lot of people think. I was not, when I arrived into this country, nobody was waiting for me. Nobody knew me because I didn't came to this country prior to my arrival in 1980. I didn't come to this country traveling with any famous Cuban band. So nobody knew who I was. Thanks to my mentor and compatriot, Mario Bauza, I met Dizzy Gillespie. Mario Bauza introduced me or spoke to Dizzy Gillespie about me. And the big story is that one day, Dizzy Gillespie needed a drummer for an engagement at a jazz club in Manhattan, and his regular drummer wasn't able to arrive to New York due to a snowstorm. So we can imagine how many names Dizzy Gillespie had in his phone book in 1980. So after calling quite a few drummers that he knew, and those drummers weren't available to do the gig, Dizzy remembered, oh, Mario Bauza told me about a young Cuban drummer. And in his desperation, he called Mario Bauza, asked Mario if I was available. Mario called me where I used to live with my aunt, may she rest in peace, in the Bronx, the South Bronx. I was available. And I went to Fat Tuesday to play with Dizzy Gillespie with a translator because it was very funny because Mario Bauza called me and asked me right off the bat. The phone rings, I picked up, and the next thing I hear is, Ignacio, do you want to play with Dizzy Gillespie tonight? And of course, I thought it was a joke. And I said, Mario, no, you're too old for this type of jokes. And he said to me, no, I'm serious. Do you want to play with Dizzy Gillespie tonight? And I said, I want to play with Dizzy Gillespie before I was born. So, well, he said to me, he's waiting for my call. He called Dizzy, told Dizzy that I was available, and then gave me the address of the club and told me, get your drums in a cab, dress nicely, and this is the address, and go to the club. It was a Fat Tuesday. And I, very naive, asking, okay, Mario, are you going to be there with me? Because I need a translator and I speak English. And he said, no, my friend, it's too cold out there. It was December. He said, it's too cold out there, so you got it. And he hung up on me. So I found a friend who drove me down, served me as translator, and I played with Dizzy Gillespie that night. What happened? So far, it sounds wonderful. The reason why everything went well, and I became later Dizzy's regular drummer for the last 10 years of his life, just with a period that I had to leave the band for immigration status, was because I knew Dizzy Gillespie's repertoire. I was familiar with Dizzy Gillespie's music, which got me in trouble in my country because jazz was a no-no, quote unquote. There was not written in the Constitution that you could not play jazz, but you are around my age, and those who remember, in Cuba, it used to happen the same thing that used to happen in the European country, in the Soviet, on the bloc, Soviet Union, like Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Poland. Jazz was like the music of the enemy. So anyway, knowing this tune saved my life, and I was able to go through the night, not knowing the arrangements, but knowing the melodies. I remember that through the translator, Dizzy, I told my translator, tell Dizzy I don't speak a word of English. And Dizzy told the translator, that by the way was my friend, the late Jerry Gonzalez. Dizzy told Jerry, you tell Ignacio that when I go like this, it is full, straight ahead, full. That when I point at him 6 fingers, that means afro-cuban, 6/8 or 12/8 or whatever you want to call it. It is afro-cuban. That when I go like make this signal, that means he has to stop. And that when I point at him, that means drum solo. Let's go. That was the rehearsal. So once again, I always tell the students, sometimes people ask me, Ignacio, what is your definition of success? Success is when talent, dedication, or perseverance on your craft meets opportunity. That is success. When you, in my opinion, that's the way I see it. When you get ready, when you learn your craft, when you command your instrument, if you want to play heavy metal, if you want to play funk or reggaeton, once you learn that style of music and you master that, once you're ready, you need for the opportunity to come to you. But once that opportunity comes to you, you have to take advantage of that because you may get just one chance for that opportunity. That's what I tell the students. We are now the students, you are at universities, you are taking lessons with different teachers. I tell all the students the same way I used to tell my kids. You have to pay attention, you have to devote your time and get the most out of a school. So for when the opportunity for that dream gig arrive, you have to be ready. So that's how I started playing with Dizzy Gillespie. And that's how also by being out with my samurai in Manhattan, I got the opportunity of playing with all the great people that I has been able to play. But I want to tell everybody, because a lot of people are confused. I sacrificed a lot, Dick and Bob, and it was not easy at all. And also, another thing to take into consideration, it's not easy being a Latino and break the wall in the jazz world, because I'm a Latino. I'm supposed for a lot of people, unfortunately, they see it that way. Ignacio Berroa just can play afro-cuban. Mm-hmm. So my passion is always going to be jazz. I moved to New York because I wanted, I didn't have in my mind that I will become Dizzy Gillespie's drummer. I came to this country looking for the freedom that I want to have for myself. Not saying that the word freedom means the United States of America, but the freedom that I wanted for me is here. So I came to looking for that, and I came also looking to see live to Dizzy Gillespie, to Clyde Terry, to McCoy Tyner, to Oscar Peterson, to my idols, because my ultimate dream in Cuba was just being able to see those guys on a video. There is a funny story because life tricks you. The first visit that Dizzy Gillespie pays to Cuba was in 1977 on a jazz cruise that departed New Orleans and docked in the Havana port for 2 days. Obviously, the two governments were in conversations because a cruise full of tourists coming from the enemy's country cannot dock in Havana without some federal authorization. So anyway, Dizzy Gillespie, they arranged for Dizzy Gillespie to play a concert in Havana with his quartet. Mickey Rocker on drums, Ben Brown on bass, and Rodney Jones on guitar. And I was one of the luckiest one, because I used to play in a band where one of the singers had a great connection with the Cuban government. And we got the tickets. And I go and see Dizzy Gillespie in 1977 at a theater in Havana. I remember also seeing Air Father Hines. Another people that I don't remember, but the main act was Dizzy. And I remember that once the concert was over, I was on the sidewalk of the theater, and I told some of my colleagues that we were in awe and talking, wow, Dizzy Gillespie. And I remember me saying, well, I can die already. I saw Dizzy Gillespie tonight. 1977. Little did I know that in December 1980, I would be in the same stage playing behind that guy. So to round out this, to all my friends, to all the students, we have no other option, in my opinion, than getting ready. I'm going to continue preaching to the choir. Pay attention to our teachers. Get the books, get the information that is going to prepare us to do the ultimate thing that we do in this business, which is play music. Play for the music and make the music. To me, music is sacred. You said that? Sacred, that's the word like a sacred. Yeah. There is nothing to me more important, meaning my family, but now we're talking about music. Don't get me wrong, because nowadays you have to be very careful. People distort what you say and take things out of context. Now that we are here talking music, there is nothing more important for me than music. And we have to learn our craft, learn history, learn everything, and also learn to put our egos aside and play music. Because the only one that should not suffer when we go to the stage or during our careers is the music. I'm sorry I extended myself. Next question, or if you want to ask something.
Ignacio, that's just such great information and such inspirational info for the students and teachers to take in and absorb. You know, we know that you've recorded with and played with many of the leading jazz artists. Can you share with us some of those experiences?
Oh, well, every experience with the people that I have played with has been amazing, because I want everybody to take into consideration, I'm a Cuban guy. I'm a Latino guy. I never thought in my life that I will cross the Caribbean stretch and land in Key West. And I never thought that I would be in New York and that I would be able to see those guys. So to make long story short, every single experience with Clyde Terry, with Jaco Pastorius, with McCoy Tyner, with whom I had the pleasure of recording 2 albums, with Milt Jackson, Percy Heath, all those guys that I was able to play. And, you know, I'm not trying to brag about me. Yes, I play with those guys. Sometimes said to me, there are friends that said to me, well, I just named the people that I really went on the band. I said, yeah, but you are American. You were born here. You take that for granted. But for me, going and doing 2 nights or a week with Clark Terry meant the whole world. And if I get a call to sub for an American drummer playing with Clark Terry, that means a lot, because Clark Terry didn't call me to play salsa. Clark Terry called me to play straight ahead jazz. And that, for me, as a Latino, as a Cuban, means the whole world. So I went to play with Clark Terry. Speaking about Clark Terry, one day I was doing a gig on his bassist. At that time, Marcus McLaurin. We were doing, maybe we were doing a Castro gig, a wedding gig, I don't know. And Marcus, at some point, he docked my playing, and he turned around and he said to me at some point, Ignacio, do you want to play with Clark Terry? And I said, of course that I want to play with Clark Terry. It was during a period of time that I had to leave this band because my immigration status didn't allow me to travel out of the United States. When we arrived, the Cuban, the Marielitos, the President Ronald Reagan put us on a limbo status. Probably they were waiting to make some type of negotiation with the Cuban government and send everybody back, or send back all the criminals, the prisoners that Castro sent during the Maria boat lift, in order to make the world look that the only people that were leaving the island at that time were just criminals. And, you know, and that's the famous movie Scarface. That was the image that he wanted to portray of all the Cubans that were leaving. So anyway, I got lost a little bit. So Marcus said, you want to play with Clark Terry? And I said, yes. I go to the gig. I never will forget. It was at the Lincoln Center. It was during the summer, a concert outside Lincoln Center. Clark Terry shows up, very classic Clark. May he rest in peace. Clark Terry shows up. By that time, I think I knew how to say thank you, how you doing, and bye. Maybe that was my English repertoire. And Clark Terry shows up. I was already there with my drum set up. Clark comes, he introduced himself. Hi, I'm Clark Terry. I'm probably say, hi, I'm Ignacio. And I was petrified of seeing the guy in front of me. And he didn't say anything else, grabbed his trumpet, his flugelhorn, and went like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And started playing the blues. I don't remember a tune. He didn't ask me, Ignacio, what do you want to play? Ignacio, which tune you know? He knew that if I had the guts of taking a gig with Clark Terry, I had to be prepared. So this is one of my Grammys. This is one of my Oscars. Those are the memories that I'm going to take with me when I leave this planet. Marcus Mallory told me he played his first chorus, 1 or 2 chords, and when he finished up, he turned around to Marcus Mallory and whispered in his ear, sign him up. That's it. Sign him up.
That's good.
That's Clark Terry talking about a guy that came from the island where you are just supposed to play afro-cuban.
Mm-hmm.
So Clark Terry, I had the opportunity of playing with Jaco Pastorio for 2 nights. Same thing. A guy asked me, Jerry Gonzalez, Ignacio, you want to play with Jaco? Yes. No rehearsal. When we went to the stage, Jaco started calling the tunes that he played, Tin Town, so forth and so on. He assumed that if I was there on the stage with him, I knew. I had to know his repertoire. So that happened with McCoy. McCoy called me for a recording in 1981. Went to rehearsal with him. Actually, I was called to play 1 or 2 tunes. I'll go to the rehearsal place, SIR in Manhattan, and I go there, sit down, play my 2 tunes, and when I finish playing my 2 tunes, I go outside and sit down to watch the rehearsal, because part of the band were McCoy Tyner, Hubert Laws, Chico Freeman, I don't remember who else, Marcus Belgrave, people that I was like, I can't believe I'm watching this guy. So anyway, for the students, the importance of reading, even though you may think that this may not happen anymore in life. The guy who was playing the drums was having some serious problem reading the music, because the session was not about playing what McCoy used to play regularly. It was people, he hired an arranger, so forth. So there were music to be read it and play it. So the guy was having some problems, and I was lucky that I decided to stay to watch the rehearsal. And I remember my friend who was my translator said to me, I was watching on the stage that there were being some problem, and I stop again, and let's do it again, and let's go to letter A again, boom, boom, back and forth. But I didn't know what they were talking in English, but I was able to imagine that there were some music reading problems. Mm-hmm. And my friend said, McCoy is going to call you back. And I said, what? He said, McCoy is going to call you back. I'm ready. Exactly. Like 10 minutes later, McCoy turned around and said, Ignacio, come over here, please. I went to the stage. He said, show so-and-so how to play the tune. I play it. And once the tune was played, I got off the drums, and McCoy said, no, Ignacio, you stay there. And I recorded the whole album. An album called La Leyenda de la Hora was recorded in 1981 for CBS Records. A great experience recording with McCoy, and then also later on, I went on tour with McCoy, subbing for his drummer. Who else? Charlie Hayden or Ron Carter, when I got a call to go 2 weeks to Japan with Chick Corea. Sometimes I wake up and I really, this is not BS. I'm not making this up. I don't want people. I'm talking, don't listen to my English. Listen to my heart. I just turned 67 years old. I still don't believe that all those things have happened to me. Because the way I see it, I was not supposed to be here talking to you guys. I was supposed to be talking on a salsa or afro-cuban session. And the way Bob just introduced me, the respect that I have gained, I want everybody to have twice the career that I had already. But for that, we have to prepare and take business serious and life serious in general, and play the music. So that's, sorry if I left out one of my idols, but that has been my experiences with the people that I thought to see one day on a video in Havana, sitting in my couch at my apartment in Havana.